One emergency bill can wipe out months of savings unless your money is split this way.
You diligently set aside cash at the end of every month, carefully stacking your savings to build a financial buffer. Yet, despite this discipline, a single vibration in your daily life can still knock the entire structure down, leaving you completely exposed. This recurring cycle of accumulation and collapse is driven by a collision of modern economic realities. We are currently navigating an environment where persistent, high baseline inflation is constantly intersecting with severe, irregular life expenses. This line graph illustrates the problem. We see steady income, but it is repeatedly fractured by erratic downward spikes. A standard, rigid savings plan assumes your monthly expenses look like a flat line. It has no mechanism to absorb a sudden $2,000 mechanic bill or an emergency flight. When an account zeroes out, the immediate reaction is often self-blame. But financial failure today is rarely a lack of willpower. It is a mathematical failure of outdated budgeting architectures attempting to process modern volatility. The 60-20-10-10 rule is an architectural framework designed to absorb these shocks by reallocating how capital is distributed across your accounts. Looking at this proportional diagram, the framework divides net income into 4 distinct functions. The first pillar strictly assigns 60% of your take-home pay to essential needs. This forms your safety base, covering non-negotiable costs like housing, groceries, utilities, and daily transport. The second pillar allocates 20% to discretionary wants. This explicitly protects lifestyle spending, dining out, entertainment, and hobbies, ensuring psychological sustainability over the long term. The modification lies in the final 2 pillars. The system designates 10% to short-term sinking funds, cash reserves specifically earmarked for anticipated purchases within the next 12 to 24 months. The final 10% is locked away for long-term wealth building, forming untouchable capital for retirement or passive investments. By mathematically locking in these 4 functional categories, the framework eliminates the guesswork of arbitrary saving. It replaces vague intentions with a dynamic, reality-based plan capable of handling the actual cost of living. This specific 4-part division did not emerge in a vacuum. It is a direct evolutionary response to the limitations of the classic 50-30-20 rule. For decades, the 50-30-20 model served as the gold standard for household budgeting, gaining massive traction when Elizabeth Warren popularized it in the early 2000s. This comparison table maps the shift. In the late 2010s, the bucketing movement, pioneered by Australian author Scott Pape, recognized that 50% was no longer realistic for basic survival. The daily essential allowance was adjusted up to 60%, but the older models still harbored a critical structural flaw. They utilized a single, generic 20% savings bucket. When irregular expenses inevitably occurred, like a broken laptop or emergency travel, that singular savings account was immediately raided. By 2024, practitioners began splitting that 20% into 2 separate categories, one 10% bucket for short-term anticipation and a walled-off 10% bucket for long-term investing. Bifurcating short-term anticipated volatility from long-term wealth accumulation is the vital mechanism of this theory. It physically prevents your retirement capital from being cannibalized to pay for new tires. Expanding the essential needs bucket to 60% was driven by a phenomenon known as housing inelasticity. For entry-level professionals working in major economic hubs, rent alone frequently consumes or mathematically exceeds the old 50% total cap for all essential needs. Even outside of high-density apartment markets, the proportional cost of basic utilities, groceries, and property maintenance has ballooned, requiring a wider baseline allowance. Compounding this is subscription bloat. Invisible, recurring digital costs continuously blur the line between utility needs and lifestyle wants, quietly draining capital. Furthermore, the massive expansion of freelance and gig economy work creates extreme income volatility from month to month, rendering rigid fixed dollar budgets useless and requiring a fluid, percentage-based framework. Maintaining a 60% essential cap alongside bifurcated savings provides the mathematical baseline required to survive the economic pressures of the mid-2020s. understanding the math is only half the equation. Executing it requires leveraging a behavioral finance concept known as mental accounting. Human psychology dictates that we are drastically more effective at managing capital when every dollar is assigned a specific, non-overlapping purpose, rather than drawing from one large, ambiguous pool. However, attempting to manually track and divide your income into these 4 buckets every time you get paid demands immense cognitive effort. Relying on sheer discipline inevitably leads to fatigue and budget abandonment. The necessary solution is systemic automation. Using tools like banking pots or no-code routing software, you set up the Waterfall Method. The exact moment a deposit hits your account, the software automatically routes the percentages into their respective buckets. True financial stability is achieved when you engineer a system that removes human willpower from the routing process entirely. Let's look at how this ledger functions in reality for a user bringing home $4,000 of after-tax income a month. In the first automated waterfall step, exactly $2,400 is routed immediately to cover all baseline survival needs. Next, $800 is securely assigned to the wants category for discretionary spending throughout the month. Finally, the system divides the remainder. $400 is assigned to short-term sinking funds for upcoming irregular costs, and the final $400 is securely locked away for long-term wealth. This process is called zero-based alignment. Every single dollar is instantly assigned a job, structurally preventing capital from leaking into unintended lifestyle expenses. This split-screen graphic breaks down the model's overall utility. On the left, we see its primary strengths: operational simplicity, robust protection against irregular expenses, and a sustained focus on long-term capital. But on the right, we find the mathematical limitations. The most severe limitation is inflexibility at the lower end of the income spectrum. For those operating near the poverty line, 100% of income often must go toward essential survival, breaking the proportional math immediately. Additionally, gig economy workers can still struggle to apply these fixed percentages during months where their income drops to absolute zero. From an investment standpoint, the FIRE movement, those seeking financial independence and early retirement, levies the slow wealth critique against this framework. They correctly argue that saving only 10% for wealth generation is mathematically insufficient for early retirement and could leave late starters severely underfunded in old age. Treating proportional rules as universal laws rather than adaptable baselines can create an unfair sense of financial shame when the buckets cannot be perfectly filled. The true utility of the framework is its adaptability. Users can manually manipulate the ratios as their specific life circumstances change. If housing costs spike, essentials can expand to 70%, shrinking discretionary wants to 10%. Alternatively, if you need to aggressively pay down high-interest debt, you can modify the rule to a 60-10-10-20 split, directing maximum capital toward the debt bucket. Over time, the ultimate threat to the system's success is not the initial math, but the user's inability to resist lifestyle creep as their income slowly grows. Keep in mind, this framework is strictly educational. It does not constitute personalized financial advice, and you should evaluate your own financial situation carefully. The 60-20-10-10 rule functions as a modular separation of survival, enjoyment, short-term stability, and long-term security. The 60-20-10-10 rule does not promise wealth overnight. It gives every dollar a role: stability today, flexibility tomorrow, and wealth for the future.